episode 84 of Brews Less Travel, the podcast exploring the best uncharted beer scenes across the United States. I'm your host, Brian, and I'm so excited to kick off our first episode of the new year, first episode of 2023. We've got an excellent city to explore this month, and we've got a co-host to match the excellence of that first 2023 BLT city. There are lots of friends of Brews Less Traveled, lots of friends of the show, but there's only one best friend. So please welcome the official best friend of the show, certified Cicerone, back for her fourth time co-hosting this show, MC. MC, how's it going?
Hey, Brian. I'm great now that I know I'm the official best friend of the show. What an honor. I had no
Official.
idea.
Yeah, we'll be getting
Quite
hats. We'll be getting hats made soon.
Exactly. So that I can lord this over the other co-hosts.
Can lord
Let it be
over
known.
Mike and Glenn and all our other friends of the show. Yeah.
I hope they're all listening right now. I'm great. I'm excited to be back as always. Really looking forward to our beer city this month. A lot of good beers coming up. So yeah, I'm great. I'm excited.
Lots of good beers. Shout out to all Yins joining us for the stream. Our BLT Beer Club subscribers, new subscribers. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining the beer club. We hope you enjoy this month. We got some, as MC already mentioned, we got some great beers, great breweries featured in this month's box. And we're going to be exploring the great city of Fort Collins, Colorado this month, probably most well known as the home of the international juggernaut brewery, New Belgium. But also there's a lot of really good small breweries there, and dare I say, some of the best small breweries in the entire state of Colorado. You know, a state that's very well known for its craft beer. It's the home of the Brewers Association. It's the home of Great American Beer Festival. And it's the home of 5 awesome small breweries in the Fort Collins area that we're going to be featuring this month on Brews Less Traveled. And on this episode, we are going to be featuring the great folks at Jessup Farm Barrel House. And we'll be drinking their Transfer Day IPA and Serious Leisure Double IPA. Starting off the month hoppy, starting off 2023 hoppy. I'm gonna make a prediction, MC. 2023, it's gonna be the year of IPAs. They're really gonna do it this year.
You know what I heard you say on 12 Beers of Christmas was it was going to be the year of Strata hops specifically. And I think I agree with that. I heard at the brewery I was working at here in Missouri for a while, the brewers and the production manager getting really excited about Strata. I heard about some really good Strata hops being grown when they were coming back from hop selection in Yakima this year. So I think I'm with you. You know, I think it's not quite time for the hop craze to go out. I think we're still in it.
Well, that's the thing, is that there's still new varietals coming out. There's still hop farmers out there that are willing to take risks and experiment with different things. And it's good for the industry. It's good for beer drinkers. And Strata is certainly a testament to that. It was a hop that didn't exist 5-6 years ago. I think may have been a HBC varietal back then,
right.
But it has exploded onto the scene. And good segue, one of our beers tonight features Strata, but we're going to start with the other one. Let's get into this Transfer Day IPA. I'm sure there's a wonderful story behind why this is named Transfer Day.
Oh, you know what? I read about that story actually before we got on this call. They just call it that. It's the day that the beer is transferred from the fermenter to the bright tank. Just kind of a chill day at the brewery. They do a lot of barrel aged beers there, I think. And so it's just kind of a calm day there. So I think that's why they call it that.
Yeah, I figured it was tied in with some industry stuff, transferring beers from one stainless steel vessel to another. I'm just going to stop rambling here. This looks like a wonderful beer.
Cheers.
Cheers. They call this a dry hop no coast IPA. It features Amarillo, Simcoe, and Mosaic hops. And that is just wonderful. I'm already looking ahead at the other beer. That is not a statement about this beer. This beer is delicious. It makes me very excited to try this other one with a bunch of other fun hops in it. But yeah, this is delicious.
Kind of some classic hops, kind of a classic no coast IPA. I like how creative people get with the no coast IPAs. You know, it doesn't have to be like big and juicy and hoppy New England style. It doesn't have to like kick your ass and be like a West Coast, 2005 style. Just really nice and approachable.
Yeah, everybody just trying to do their best to replicate Two Hearted in their own way, right?
Yeah, yes.
The ultimate.
There will never be another Two Hearted, but lest we try.
Oh, wonderful beer. Yeah, well, let's bring on our guest. He is the founder of the Craft Beer Professionals industry group. Please welcome Mr. Andrew Coplon.
Thank you all so much for having me, Brian, MC. I'm excited to be here.
Hey, Andrew.
Well, thanks for joining us. Good to see you. Let's get started here with our quick sip questions. These are fast questions, fast answers. They help us get to know you fastly, faster. I've tried a bunch of different words at the end of there, and I don't feel comfortable with any of them. So fastly, let's go with that. Andrew, are you ready?
I'm ready, Brian.
Cool. Favorite beer style?
Favorite beer? I'm just going to go simple. Let's go with a nice crisp lager.
Wonderful. Can or a bottle?
Can. Unless it's a special limited release in a nice bottle. I love, the little 750 to drink all by myself.
Wax on the top makes you feel fancy.
Give me a nice little cork I have to pop out too.
Yeah, press out the wine key for some beer. Instagram or Facebook?
Facebook. I spend too much time on it.
We'll get more into that. West Coast IPA or New England IPA?
West Coast all the way.
Okay. And your favorite non-work activity?
Ooh, I have a 3-year-old, so simply just chasing him around the playground after a good bike ride is how I disconnect from Facebook in many ways.
That's awesome. And my favorite, at least, quick sip question. Andrew, have you ever seen a UFO, a Bigfoot, a paranormal entity, anything inexplicable?
That's a really great question. My wife is a big fan of the supernatural. I have not seen a UFO, watched a lot of X-Files. We live in a 100-year house. We've heard our share of weird noises. But to answer your question, Brian, no UFOs.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Excellent. Let's get started for real. In the past, let's walk back to the past a little bit with the formal interview, if we will. Before Craft Beer Professionals, can you tell us, Secret Hopper, a little bit about your first beer endeavor?
Yeah, so the Secret Hopper was me first getting into the industry about 6 years ago. Prior to that, I ran a food service for quite some time. I worked at stadiums and arenas like all across the country. Many of these great beer cities that you all have traveled to, I've experienced. So I was a beer traveler first and foremost through that. But I was also someone who always had crazy ideas about business. So I first got into the industry when I was just sending my wife one of my crazy ideas. And, as someone who loves beer like you all, you're trying to think of ways you can combine business and beer. So she was working at an animal hospital at the time. She got her really accustomed to me always having these ideas, typically didn't follow through. I enjoyed my job. So one day I was texting her and you see like the little dots pop up on your iPhone. I go, Stacy, I have this great idea for a business. And she's probably thinking, oh, here we go again, And I'm watching the dots pop up, they go away, they pop up, they go away. And I say, we're going to be a mystery shopping company for breweries and we're going to call it Secret Hopper. And the dots just stop. Those iPhone dots you get anxious about, they just stop. Next thing you know, you see it come through and she goes, that's stupid. So what does any person do with a new great idea who loves beer and think it's a fantastic idea? You buy the domain, you start the business, and you go from being, someone who just loves drinking and brewing beer to someone who's somehow in the industry magically. And that was about 6 years ago now.
So Secret Hopper, did it go anywhere? Did it work out? Was obviously you're secret shopping and you have this beautiful pun of a name. What
We got
happened?
very lucky with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we still run the company to this day, and the whole premise was, something I think we're a little more keen to these days. 5, 6 years ago, there was only 5,000 breweries, and now what do we have? Like only almost 10,000 breweries. So our whole premise was, you have to do more than make really great beer. Obviously, you have to make great beer because that's the backbone of our industry. If you're not making great beer, you're not going to last. But you also have to have a memorable experience. So it was our goal to help brewery owners, taproom managers find ways to make the taproom experience more memorable and profitable. And yeah, we've worked with breweries coast to coast, and I'm so lucky to talk with many great people, in that space. So it's still kicking and going.
That's
Very
awesome.
cool.
So I recently joined Craft Beer Professionals in my new role as taproom manager for Low Lead Beer here in Pittsburgh. And so I'd love to talk about the origins of CBP, how it got started. And yeah, so how did the group get started? How did you parlay or go from Secret Hopper into that? And was there an aha moment with that where you knew it was going to work out?
I wouldn't call it an aha moment per se, but when I first launched Secret Hopper, I was honestly shocked that there wasn't a place specifically on social media where people like you and I and, MC and others work in the industry to connect. I found just talking to people, brewers were talking to people in their community. They'd see people at CBC, maybe a guild event, once or twice a year. But we really weren't networking and getting to know people outside of our comfort zone. So I simply started a Facebook community. I mean, it's almost silly to say sometimes. We started a Facebook community. I, at one point, was the only member, just to bring people together because I believed it was so valuable to have these conversations, especially as we saw during the pandemic when people are, just struggling to find ways to survive, to simply ask questions, get answers from people halfway across the country, and to know you're not alone. So the initial goal of it, and it's still one of the main premises we stand on, is simply connecting people for that conversation. And that was in 2017 we launched.
Wow. Yeah, that's so cool. I'm in mid-Missouri, and I often, especially as like a woman in beer in mid-Missouri, I feel like pretty isolated sometimes. And communities like that are so cool. I follow you guys on Instagram, and
trying to get better at Instagram. I really am.
You're doing great. You're doing great. I just saw a post from you today, I think. So anyway, all that to say, I think that just the idea of that community is really cool. And so let's talk a little bit more about what CBP does for industry members. Can you tell us a little bit about how it has grown over the years, and maybe what's the most surprising element that you've come across?
Ooh, that's a couple loaded questions there. So we've definitely grown a lot over the first few years. As mentioned, the goal initially was just to start the conversations. Then we slowly evolved into, putting out like weekly content. I think it started as simply Ask Me Anything, where we bring in industry experts to literally ask them anything. And we really began to ramp it up during the pandemic. And, 2020, when the Craft Brewers Conference was canceled, we believe that education should still continue. So we took the opportunity to literally host a 3-day virtual event in April 2020. And at that point in time, I don't think I'd used Zoom before. No one knew how to live stream. And so we put together this virtual conference with like 50, 60 sessions with about a month's heads up. And it was a real fun learning experience, but I think it really spoke to the desire for people to, further their education, because not everybody in our industry has the opportunity to go to these large events. And whether you're the, 2-day a week a beer tender, or you're someone who's been in the industry 25 years, there's still that desire to just learn more. And what better way to learn? We're just, brewing in the brew house, put something on Spotify, just put something on YouTube at the end of the night. Just making education accessible is something we really aim to do. And that was, I'd say, like phase 2 of Craft Beer Professionals, when we really ramped up the education. In phase 3, I don't think I've ever referred to it as phases, but it does make sense when we look at it this way, was translating our virtual community, this weird little hole of the internet of 16,000 Craft Beer Professionals, to translating it to something in person. And it was Denver CBC, the Craft Brewers Conference of 2021, where we hosted our first, essentially just happy hour. That's really all it was. And You know, to have so many people online who knew each other was cool, but would they come together in a little tap room in Denver? I had no idea. And so what we did, we announced, I should say, before we even got there, an event for a couple hours at Jagged Mountain Craft Brewery in Denver, which had fantastic beer. I drank way too much of it that night. But you get there, you always show up to your own party a little bit early because you just want to make sure everything's ready. And you have no idea how many people are going to show up. And then people started showing up, and it was uncomfortably crowded for 2 hours. This is arguably like mid-pandemic when this was happening. And the beauty of it was, though, there was people in this room who had never met face to face, but they knew each other from the internet. They recognized each other's little circular pictures from Facebook. They recognized each other from the comments. So despite the fact that most of the room had never met, everybody had beer in common. But we were also part of Crafty Professionals community, and we had that desire to just connect. So it was amazing to see so many people that we got to know on the internet face to face. And I apologize. And one of the funny things about that night was, you know, when you're on camera like this, you're only seeing people from the shoulders up for the most part. So we played this game. It wasn't intended as a game, but it was almost like when you meet someone, are they shorter or taller than you expect them to be based off what you saw on the internet? So, you know, that was the first time we actually brought our community together. And I don't know how I'm choking on water tonight, but, you know, I apparently need some more.
That's very funny. We'll peel back the curtain. MC, you and we've never met in person.
I was just about to say that, right?
Yeah. We'll have to do that and guess. I was gonna say, can you guess how tall I am? But that's not the game. That doesn't make sense. No, I remember that CBC. I was there in I guess I was there in my capacity as no, I wasn't actually. I was not hosting the show when I went there. I was there in my capacity as chief personnel officer for City Brew Tours, my previous role. And that CBC was special because it was kind of half capacity. Wasn't as big of it. It was the first in-person one held since COVID. And the events that happened, there was a special feel to them. And the people that were there, there was this camaraderie that was instant. You know, I think everybody wanted to be back together again, and I can't even begin to imagine what it was like for all of those people in the Craft Beer Professionals group to finally have that in-person meeting after this, you know, one of the hardest periods in the entire beer industry. I mean, forget the beer industry, one of the hardest periods in our existence as human beings.
And it was beautiful because I think we were all craving that level of engagement and excitement there to see people face to face. We were excited through the roof, and it was an amazing experience to bring all these people together for the crowded time. And that was the first time we ever did something in person, and it would set the stage for the future of what we would bring out.
Yeah. MC, you want to try this second beer from Jessup here?
Let's do it.
All right. So like MC mentioned, yeah, it's funny. It's Jessup is very much known for their barrel aging and their beers, their wood beers, specialty beers. But funny enough, we have 2 IPAs from them. Our second here is a New England style double IPA brewed with Azaka, Casimir, Eldorado, Idaho 7, and the soon to be hop of the year, Strata.
Yep. Yeah, some real juicy ones in there.
And definitely a very, very juicy beer. Oh, Cashmere is what jumps out to me in that. Wow. That is so good. With all those hops, that Cashmere really shines through. And it's funny because I always know Cashmere when I taste it, but I can't describe it. To me, it tastes like a quilt or flannel pattern.
Okay.
And that's the best descriptor I can give.
Okay, so soft, round, maybe.
Yeah, interweaving.
Okay. You know what Cashmere kind of reminds me of? Yeah. Cashmere kind of reminds me, I hear people talk about like papaya a lot, but I've never had a papaya, so I can't like reference that when I talk about beers. And I think it's funny when people do, because I don't think a lot of people have had papaya. But in Missouri, we have something called a pawpaw. Have you guys ever heard of a pawpaw before?
I've had it a
Sometimes they
couple
call it
times,
like a
I think.
Missouri mango. Yeah. And it's kind of like somewhere between like a banana and a mango and a papaya. So it's kind of like a creamy, softer tasting mango. That's kind of what I think of when I think of cashmere.
I am a sucker for a colloquial name for things. I
Hmm.
have never heard the term Missouri mango for pawpaw,
Oh,
and
really?
I love that. Yeah, that's amazing.
Maybe it's probably just a Missouri thing. We really just tried to take it all for ourselves.
A question in the chat. How do we um why were these two beers chosen to represent Jessup? These that's a complicated question, I guess. We try to pick a variety of styles, and it just so happened that Jessup had two IPAs that were going to be freshly packaged and ready for us to go. Um, and that's how we ended up with two IPAs from a brewery that is known for their barrel beers. MC, please rescue me from this. This
Okay. Okay.
I
Perfect.
just went off into a
Um,
tangent there for
no, that's great. I think that's probably true. And so yeah, back to brass tacks here. Andrew, what are you excited for in the 2023 beer scene?
What am I excited for in the 2023 beer scene? And that's a loaded question. I'll give you a professional question answer first, and I'll kind of dive a little more big picture industry. So I had
Perfect.
mentioned that we, did our first in-person happy hour in Denver 2021. Since then, we've done two in-person workshops. We actually did one in Missouri, MC. We did not have any Missouri mangoes, unfortunately, while I was there, but we hosted a workshop in June of this past year in St. Louis. And I think it was fantastic because St. Louis has such a rich beer history. But I
Oh
think
my gosh.
also
Yeah.
a little underrated in the scheme of, beer cities across the country. And I visited through St. Louis a
Yes.
lot in my past life. And I've had some of my best beer experiences while I hate to keep saying St. Louis. I don't think you're in St. Louis, but in Missouri. So
I'm right down the road. Yeah. No, I'm very close. I'm in Columbia. And I'm trying to get Brian to visit St. Louis for Brews Less Traveled because I totally agree. It's a very underrated beer city with a lot of awesome beer culture and history.
yeah, and I had a blast there. We had a workshop there. We had 3 nightly receptions at some of the fantastic St. Louis tap rooms. And I would love to do it all over again. And we did one in Virginia in September, but this coming year, we're doing 2 more workshops. And I think almost follows the Brews Less Traveled theme. Because, there's so many great state guilds out there. We don't want to step on their toes. We don't want to go to places the Brewers Association is doing a big event. We want to go to cities that have that desire to have some sort of education, networking type event. So we're going to be doing an event in June in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which also has a ton of beer history there. The workshop's actually going to be in an old Pabst Blue Ribbon brewery that's been turned into an event space. So on a professional and personal level, I'm just super excited to be in that building, but also have the workshop. So to give me a reason to go back to Wisconsin is going to be fun. It's one of my favorite states I've traveled through over the years. So that's an excitement one. And we're also going to be in Charleston, South Carolina, which I think is a very up and coming beer city, a city I've never actually been to either, that I'm very much looking forward to visit, in that professional capacity.
Excellent.
yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun things coming up.
And I think, for beer as a whole, it's just been fun to watch the industry continue to grow. As I mentioned, I got into this industry 5, 6 years ago, and there's only 5,000 breweries, and now there's 10,000 breweries. I just love seeing what people make work. And my philosophy in life is to almost try anything once, whether that's, a brewer brewing some crazy beer with, your pawpaws in it, or, a tap room hosting just some super unique event. I love seeing the creativity that our industry puts out there. Our industry is almost based on a love of a product and a hobby. And I think the connections are so much stronger when you bring a group of people together who have that shared love of beer already and see what we can do to make it more successful. So that creativity, the entrepreneurial spirit, I'm just excited to see what they think of this coming year.
Yeah, I will say there were some very cool cities that were mentioned there, and they nothing more.
You may have put them on a list.
Funny
No
enough,
comment.
they're also on National Geographic's list of
No
top
comment.
places to visit in 2023. I did this completely unintentionally, but someone shared that list. I'm like, Milwaukee, scrolling down a little bit, Charleston. Apparently, we have cool cities that we want to visit and talk about.
Excellent. Perk of the job.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't want to say too much. Holy crap! You guys mentioned you mentioned some really awesome cities, some uncharted beer scenes there.
Well, I'm
Uh,
in Norfolk, Virginia, and I doubt you have an episode planned here, but also
Ooh,
very underrated beer city that's grown quite a bit
yes.
over the past few years. So if you're ever passing through, I would love to have that beer in person and share the history and city here.
I will be passing through. I have some friends that live in the DC area, and I would like to make my way to Virginia for other reasons this year, professional reasons maybe as well. And I haven't heard much about Norfolk, so I mean, there's my favorite stat always about the growth of craft beer and the growth of breweries in America is that over 80% of drinking age adults live within 10 miles of a brewery.
Wow.
So there is literally local beer everywhere across this country. So like if you I don't doubt that you have wonderful beer there, and I can't wait for the opportunity to try beer in a city that I've never heard of a brewery from. I mean,
And
that's
honestly,
the whole premise of the show.
yeah, I think that's the fun part when you go into an experience blind and you have the ability to be wowed. There's no expectations that you're about to try the haziest beer you've ever had, or what the vibe's going to be. You walk into a place for the first time and you have that first experience, and you can never recreate that first experience. And I think that's beautiful.
Is it the Vale that I'm thinking of that has a tap room in Norfolk?
They do have a satellite tap room about a
Okay.
mile and a half from my house. They do.
Okay. I know it was somebody like
Oh,
that. Yeah.
lucky
I
you.
lived in DC for about 5 years, and I never got out to Norfolk, but I got out to Richmond a few times. There's a lot of great beer and just like that general area of Virginia.
Oh, Richmond's fantastic. They get a little more
Yeah.
love than we do. I mean, granted, they have a
Yeah.
lot more breweries, but Virginia, definitely has a lot to offer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It looks like we have a question in the chat that I was going to throw out there, Brian.
please do.
It's actually in the Q&A. It says, Andrew, do you contract secret hoppers, look for volunteers to visit tap rooms? How does that part of the business work?
That's a really great question. And you're not going to be a volunteer because we're going to pay you, actually.
Oh,
People
there you
get
go.
paid to visit breweries. And, from that model, we have shoppers all across the country. And unfortunately, we don't have breweries we work with in every city, but we are pretty active nationwide. And so the typical scenario is you would get selected to visit a brewery. You get a text on your phone and said, hey, Brian, would you like to visit this brewery? Here's the deal. And the standard payment and the setup is you're going to get a flight followed by a pint, and you're going to get paid somewhere between 20 and 50 bucks for that experience. So if you're going to a brewery anyways, you provide a little feedback to make them a little bit better. You're doing your part to make our industry even more awesome, and you're enjoying some beers on Secret Hopper in the meantime. So anyone interested, I'll plug it as it go to fly.secrethopper.com if you want us to someday maybe buy you a beer.
Oh, awesome. I think some listeners just found a new side gig.
Yes, the answer is always yes. If you can fund your craft beer hobby, yes.
I heard a joke today that about the best thing a brewer wants to hear when they're in the tap room is somebody saying, "Oh, you guys hiring taste testers?" But Andrew, you are literally hiring taste testers.
Somewhat, yes. We hopefully they don't go in with that attitude. We want people with the desire to help them improve, but yes, you will get paid to taste test beer.
That's a really awesome system because I think all of us in the front of house world of craft beer would like that very objective, unbiased feedback, and not knowing that person is there, and having them get that completely unmitigated, uncurated uncurated to a reviewer experience. I think that's extremely valuable for our community.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who works in the tap room yourself, Brian, it's truly the little things that make a big difference. If you can find these little strategies to connect with your guests, they're going to be more likely to return and more likely to spend money in your tap room and come back sooner.
Yeah. So we normally ask when we wrap these up, what is something that you wished the featured city that we were talking about was more well known for? But Andrew, you're so well connected throughout the whole industry, and well, you aren't in our featured city, but what is something that you wish the entire craft beer community was more well known for?
Yeah, well, first off, I really do like Fort Collins. That's one. Two, come to Norfolk, Virginia. It's a great place. But one of the things we do in Craft Beer Professionals, we really aim to make the craft beer industry a better place, not just, brew better beer. We want you to run a better business, and we're really passionate about creating safer and more welcoming workplaces and just tap rooms in general. So this past year, we did an industry-wide employee satisfaction study in partnership with Craft Beer Advisory Services. And, it was really interesting looking at this data. And one of the questions we asked was, what are the three things that are currently impacting your level of happiness working in your position in craft beer? And this is what's currently impacting that. We saw, was your coworkers, was a welcoming brewery environment, and a collaborative internal environment. Those are the top three things we saw that are currently making people happy. But a really interesting thing when we shifted the question and said, what's going to make you more happy in the future? What we saw there were, base pay raises, growth opportunities, and increased benefits. And I truly would love not only to see the craft beer industry become more safe, more welcoming, more diverse, but also see, even greater and better treatment of everybody working in the industry, whether that's, providing someone more money. Brewers work hard. Those conditions are tough sometimes. So, raises for the brewers, more training opportunities, more, chances to go to brewing school, get that certificate, or, the ability to just go and up in the company. So often people think of craft beer as really romantic working in the industry side of things, but it's a lot of hard work. And I would love to see, breweries continue to run better businesses and treat both guests and staff even better.
Yeah, I think I think you hit the nail on the head with that. I think a lot of breweries, especially in production, it's kind of like you're lucky to be here. Like you're learning a lot. Not everybody gets this opportunity, and it's not necessarily equal on the pay and benefit side. And I think that would definitely keep people happier at breweries longer, and just make craft beer even better. Because if people are excited to be there and happy in their jobs, they're going to do a better job, make better beer for us, I think.
100%. And I think so often people use the expression labor of love. And, it's fantastic when there's something you can do that you love, but you also deserve to be compensated fairly for it. And I think so often in craft beer, someone might get thrown a few extra low fills or say, hey, here's a little pizza to go with your shift. But, pizza doesn't pay the bills, right? So
Right.
anything we can do to make the experience better for both the guests and those working in the industry, I think should be the goal.
Yeah, most definitely. I can't add anything to that. You both MC and Andrew said it so eloquently. Um, yeah, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us. Anything
Brian
to
and MC,
plug?
this is a great opportunity. And let me know when you come through Virginia, both of you.
I will, for
Absolutely,
sure.
absolutely. Anything to plug before we get out of here?
I mean, you already asked me if anyone wants to be a secret hopper. We'd love to buy you beer someday. Simply go to apply.secrethopper.com. And if you're in the industry or you're looking to learn more about becoming in the industry, Craft Beer Professional is an educational resource designed to make you, more savvy, smarter, just feel like you're not alone. Search Craft Beer Professionals on Facebook. We would love to have you join us.
Awesome. That's great. MC, final thoughts.
Nothing real earth shattering. I loved everything we talked about. I love talking about community and beer. I think that's what it's all about most of the time. That's what it comes down to. I think people are excited about the opportunity to get to know each other through beer, and I think that organizations like Andrew that you're doing are really exciting. And I'm grateful that they exist, and I'm grateful for, people like you that use your time and effort to make them exist.
I mean, MC, I'm just truly lucky enough to spend my days talking beer with a bunch of great people. I'm truly lucky this position that's somehow come into my life.
As Andrew mentioned earlier, the kind of barrier for entry now in beer is making good beer. And if we can make craft beer and the communities around it a space where people get something more out of it, we have exceeded the goals for the industry. And it's so great that like MC said, it's so great that there's people that are fostering these communities, especially like yourself, Andrew, with craft beer professionals. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for doing what you do. Shout out to Jessup. Shout out to Jessup Farm for supplying these great beers. You can find more from them at Jessup Barrel. Geez, I'm gonna screw this name up every time I say it. Jessup Farm Barrel House.com. You can also follow us at Brewvana on Instagram, TikTok, Untapped, all the things, YouTube. And head over to brewvana.com to explore the subscription options and ways that you can help support our show. We'll be back next week with more beers from an awesome Fort Collins brewery. But until then, stay safe, be kind, and support local breweries, everybody. Cheers. Thanks for watching Brews Less Traveled on YouTube. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more interviews with brewery professionals.